This week, we're turning our attention to Director of Care, Derek Barron. Now, you may well be familiar with Derek. He's in charge of caring for everybody across all of the Erskine sites, and we'll learn a bit more about him from the man himself, because he's here right now. Hi, Derek. So tell us, firstly, a little bit what it is that you do. In short, what is your role here at Erskine?
So I'm responsible for the care across the 4 care homes, so that the care home aspect of the charity. So all the care to the residents, about planning future care, about ensuring that we're delivering the best quality care we can. And I'm the accountable officer, as it were, to the Chief Executive and to the board.
So tell us about your career to date and what brought you to Erskine, because I know that you've got a rich history in medical care, haven't you? And now you're at Erskine. What's been your path?
So, first of all, I'm a nurse, and I retained being a nurse when I came to Erskine. I started off over 30 years ago in Greater Glasgow and Clyde, where I worked for 20 years, and I left there to go to Erskine Arran as the Associate Nurse Director. So that was an interesting journey down the coast, which I did for over 10 years. And a short time in the middle of that, I had a year, or 10 and a half months in NHS Orkney, which it sounds great. And, you say, well, I used to go to work in a plane on a Monday morning, which sounds very glamorous until you actually see the plane.
Yes.
Maybe that's not quite as glamorous as it was appeared to be, but it was an interesting time. I was only up there in secondment for that 10, 11 months. So I enjoyed that, and then back to Erskine. And from there, I left, retired from the NHS, and came to Erskine nearly 5 years ago next month.
So that is quite a varied path, really, of obviously working in quite a busy metropolitan area, and then out in the wilds and some of the remotest parts of the country, really.
And there's some similarities with the NHS Orkney and Erskine, actually. All of the things that I had to do in the larger boards, we had to do in NHS Orkney as well, but you just had less people to do it, so you became skilled at doing multiple things rather than having different departments to do it. And it's a bit like that in Erskine. We all have to turn our hand to a little bit to make sure we got all our systems and our governances work properly.
And what really are the similarities and differences, that, other than what you just mentioned there, which is a great example, but between working generally in the NHS, as you have done for many years, to now working within Erskine? It's obviously a much different environment, and you must get to know a lot of the people you're looking after a lot better.
I think that's one of the joys of Erskine, Ian, that rather than the NHS, which is, and it's designed this way, it's about throughput, it's about getting people in, sorting them, patching them up, doing what you need to do, and then hoping to get them to move on. Erskine, you get to build relationships with people. But there's actually there are lots of similarities in terms of, I'd mentioned governance. So our structure of governance, about understanding how we're doing things, making sure we've always got that focus and quality, looking at how we can improve and how we can develop things. But also, I work with highly skilled, highly professional staff, just the way I did in the NHS. And I think the pandemic has shown us that not everybody understood that at the beginning. And bit by bit, people are starting to understand about the great skills that are required to work in a care home and to deliver that care. And I guess that aspects of it is similar to the NHS. We're always pushing the how can we do it better, what can we learn, how can we make sure we've got the best care for our residents. I suppose one point to me that is, I'm going to say the word better than the NHS, is the freedom to act. So we are more fleet of foot in Erskine than the NHS. The NHS is like that big ship that blocked the Suez Canal. It takes a heck of a lot of effort and steam to turn it round, to change its direction. Erskine were more fleet of foot. If we see something that is going to be supportive of our residents, something that they need, we're much more able to respond, to do things like that. If we've got things that we want to change, again, following, say, research or some quality improvement, it's much easier for us to do that than it is when I was in the NHS. So I've enjoyed that aspect of certainly of working in Erskine.
And you mentioned there the last year, of course, has been particularly challenging, and I guess having those powers, if you like, and the ability to be a bit more agile to react to whatever it is that's thrown at you would have been particularly useful over this past year. How has the last year been for you as Director of Care at Erskine? Because it must have been hugely challenging. Hugely
challenging, but it's also been one of pride and frustration. So I'll start with pride, because pride in how our staff have responded. They've gone the extra mile. They've changed shifts. They've come in done extra shifts. They've always gone above and beyond. They've put the residents first. But also they've put themselves in the front line. And so the frustration is where, for a long period of time, the media, the government, the press didn't really understand and see how our staff were in the front line. An easy example of that is the NHS staff were getting priority to go to a food store to get food, and yet our staff weren't. And it took Ian, who wrote to our local Morrisons and then actually gave a letter to all of our staff to take to food store to say these staff are key frontline staff as well and should be afforded that privilege of being able to shop at a time, because they're coming in, they're in the front line, they're looking after the residents, and then they would go home. They weren't always able to access shops and things like that. So it's simple things like that were frustrating. But overall, it was a time of, I think, great pride for me to seeing the staff, to seeing the residents, and to get the support from our relatives. We've had some fantastic words from our relatives about supporting us, recognising that we were standing in for them as best we could during a period of time. And we were nearly 20 weeks where we had no visitors into our homes. And that meant the staff were taking on their role as staff members, as people who cared, but also as substitute relatives. And I'm incredibly proud of the work they did in relation to that. And I think they've shown themselves in great light. We always talk about Erskine, but proud to care. I think they demonstrated that in buckets, that proud and caring.
What would you say you've learned the most over the last year, and the lessons perhaps it's taught you?
I suppose it reinforced what I'd always felt since I came to Erskine, that the staff are extraordinary and they do extraordinary things every day. And we use a workplace, a social media platform called Workplace. And I have great joy in looking at that and seeing how our staff put on posts about things that are going on with the residents, whether that's dancing, whether that's having parties, whether that's just simply sitting doing colouring in or doing artwork and things like that. It reinforces the joy of working in care and what our staff put into their everyday care. It's been a delight to see that part of it. So in a way, that was, I knew it happened, but now to see it more often. The interesting thing as well, of course, is to see the number of residents who have taken to digital communication. They've taken to Zoom or Skype or etc. like that, and they're quite adept at it. We even saw some people using email for the first time. That's something you wouldn't have expected. It's a new skill, but our residents have adapted and in the main have managed to do that, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I've heard some good stories of lots of the residents really getting on with computers, and perhaps that is something that they wouldn't have been maybe minded to do quite so much were it not for this. But a great skill, and obviously rediscovering communications and ways of getting in touch with family members that maybe they'd not spoken to quite as much through not knowing how to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one which I remember. It was a 94th birthday party. And we had it on Zoom. But what was great was that the resident could get to see a great deal more family members than if it had been in person. Because you had youngsters, just fairly new, less than a year old, right up to a 94-year-old resident, all being able to see each other on this big screen. And that's just so different. You wouldn't have expected that, but it's another great way of making that connection with people that we might not have had otherwise.
talking about getting into nursing, and clearly nursing within care homes has had a mixed press over the last year, what with everything that's been happening. What would you say to anybody who's listening to this, who is newly qualified or indeed qualifying at the moment and is considering a career in nursing, and maybe they should do that at Erskine?
I would encourage any newly qualified nurse who wants to embed their skills, who wants to develop their skills, is to come to Erskine. And if they choose, they can stay at Erskine and build a career at Erskine. We've got a career structure every bit as dynamic as they have in the NHS. We've got as many stages as they've got in the NHS, up to and including nurse consultant. There's not many care homes that can say that or give that kind of assurance to someone who wants to come and work with us. So we'd be delighted to see a newly qualified nurse working with us, and I'm delighted to say we've had some who've gone on and stayed with us, and we've got some who have never worked anywhere else other than in a care home, in a care setting, and they've gone on to have a great career.
Erskine's been proactive in supporting safe visiting across the 4 homes throughout the pandemic, and it's great now as well to see pictures of more and more family members being able to get together and meet their loved ones, some of which I know through messages that we've received to the radio station haven't seen for well over a year, 15 or 16 months or so. This is really important, but what is the importance to you for these visits?
I think there's a couple of aspects to that. First of all, we pride ourselves, and we've signed the Human Rights Charter as Erskine along with Alzheimer's Scotland even before I came to Erskine. And I think human rights are about implementing those rights even when it's difficult. And people have the right to meet with their families. They have a right to family life. So wherever possible, Erskine have gone to the fullest extent of what the guidelines will allow us, and I think we are rightly proud of having been at the front of that, about sometimes shaping those guidelines. But even if you just come away from the human rights perspective and rights and just think about people, we are people, and if we stop caring about people, then we really shouldn't be in the job. So we care about people, we care about families getting back together, we care about seeing the relatives being able to come in, and it's a time of joy. I mean, we get to see youngsters, we get to see older people come in, and that the joy in their faces. And I can remember the first time when one of our relatives called Jackie came in and she hugged her dad. That was the first hug that we had seen in Erskine for a year, and the joy in both their faces. So there's that about people. Person-centredness means about actually making the effort to truly be person-centred. So we've, on all of our homes, we've gone to the fullest extent as quickly and as safely as we can, and in terms of positive risk-taking. So we don't take foolish risks, but with positive risk-take. What can we do to the fullest extent to bring people back together? And I think that's something we should be rightly proud of.
And what makes Erskine different from other care homes? There are obviously a lot of differences, because the range of people that you care for is probably greater than a lot of care homes or places that do this kind of thing, and the backgrounds are obviously very different as well.
Yeah, I think Erskine, all 4 of our homes are purpose built. So you're not trying to shoehorn into an old Victorian building that's not designed for what we want it to do. So when you come into an Erskine home, you'll see space, you'll see light, you'll see all of our homes look into some sort of greenery, some sort of garden in a resident's room. So that I think makes us different. But also our staff makes it different. So the dedication of our staff, the range of staff. So we've got physiotherapy, we've got speech and language therapy, we've got advanced nurse practitioners, dementia nurse consultants, practice development nurse, quality improvement. All of these things add to and make Erskine different. And I don't know, Ian, if you've been to the Erskine home where headquarters is, but just walking in there and looking at Harry's Cafe and all the extra things that we do in relation to that, these are just the things that make Erskine stand out for what they are. And we've got great support from our we'll call them back office staff.
Well, it's been great speaking with you, Derek. Thanks for sharing your story, how you found yourself here at Erskine, and continue doing the wonderful work that you do and caring so richly for everyone within the 4 Erskine homes. One final question for you. Over to you. We're going to put you in charge of the radio station for just a bit. If you could pick a song, is there a song that we can play for you, Derek?
Yes, and I'll tell you, I think I've been loving the show, and I haven't caught all of them, but I'm doing them on catch-up. So I think the power of music we see, and we've invested in Playlists for Life in the past, and I think the power of music is just wonderful for what it brings and evokes memories. So I'm going to bring out a side of me that probably no one ever sees, and I'm going to ask for a song by Elton John called The Way You Look Tonight, because when I play that song, it reminds me of a night out my wife and I were at. She used to work in a golf club, and we had their annual dinner dance, and we were coming home from our friend's house after the event and everything. It was a great night, and we lived fairly close to our friends, and so we started walking home, and it started raining, and she took off her shoes and we're walking in the rain, but just that when I play that song, it always reminds me of that night and how she was and how lovely she looked. She was dressed, and she's probably going to kill me for saying that, but yeah, it's a bit soppy, but yeah, I think that'd be a nice song I'd like to hear in Erskine Veterans Radio.
Fantastic, no problem at all. The biggest selling single of all time, that, by the way. Not many people know that.
I did not know that, nope.
Because it was a double A side, and that means that it got the joint honour, but it was a double A side with the Elton John "Candle in the Wind," the Diana song.
Right.
Little pub quiz question there for you.
Yes, I'll file that one for future use.
Absolutely, it might just win you something. Thank you very much, Derek. It's been great speaking to you, and thanks for joining us, and all the best for the future, and keep up the great work.
Good, thank you, Ian, and thank you for the show. I think our residents are really enjoying it when I walk around and talk to them, and so are staff. So, yeah, thanks for your doing it, and I'm loving the music.